Hello and welcome to another episode of the Best You interview series. It's Gary here again. Thank you as always for taking the time to tune in. And today I'm absolutely thrilled to be joined by author, speaker, and coach Sarah Dawkins, who is here to discuss her fascinating journey in life that was the catalyst for the creation of her own practice that is intended to help you become as healthy as you possibly can. Sarah admits that she knows what it's like to be sick and tired all the time and when no one seemed to be able to help her and she didn't know what to do to feel better. So she took healing matters into her own hands, which is all the more significant because Sarah was in the medical profession, which we'll get to talking about here just very soon. As Sarah naturally self-healed, she started to recognize that she had also created a formula that could help other people heal too. So undertook some training to help her pass on her knowledge and became an accredited master coach and now helps clients with their health and happiness success and using her health and happiness success formula. The key to Sarah's impact is to help you improve your health and your life by tapping into your own natural innate self-healing. Sarah insists that it is easier than you think as she has done it herself and she can help you help yourself and improve your health and your happiness. Sarah, thank you very, very much for coming on the show today.
Thank you, Gary. That was a lovely introduction.
It's fantastic. It's very impressive. I know a wee bit of the journey as we had an opportunity to connect prior to today, and I'm loving it. I'm loving the passion. I'm loving the journey. I'm loving the intricacies of it. Because it's not all easy, and that's really kind of where I want to start. So if we can start by sharing the highlights of essentially what got you to here and including like the pivotal moment that really pushed you into taking healing into your own hands and eventually creating what you've created thus far.
Thank you. It took me a long time to understand the power of the mind and the power of the body. In fact, I was 41 when one of my nurse colleagues turned around and questioned my use of pharmaceuticals at home. And up until that point, my mindset, my core beliefs were that when we're sick, we go to a doctor, we take a pill, and we are better, we're healed, because my mum was a nurse and that's how I was raised.
Yeah.
41 years in that blinkered medical model. I knew nothing else outside of that. So when she questioned me, I started doing some research and realized how powerful and magical we are, and started tweaking my lifestyle and diet and healed eczema, psoriasis, and acid reflux within about a month. I went on and healed chronic pain, candida, bulimia nervosa, and then I had a depression with suicidal thoughts, which spiraled out of control, burnt out my adrenal glands, and my thyroid stopped working. So because I'd already stepped out of the medical model with the acid reflux, eczema, and psoriasis, I'm thinking, well, I can heal this, right? But I wasn't quite sure. So I had to do a lot of research to find out what I needed to do. And because I was in that medical model, I was only looking around the physical stuff, the things like nutrition and hydration and sleep and breathing, because that's where my focus was because of my training and my upbringing.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until I did lots more research, I realized that actually it's not just that one plane or pillar, if you like. Through what I've learned, I've devised 4 pillars that all need to be addressed to heal. So I had to deal with my mental health, which involved mindfulness, gratitude, meditation to calm my mind down, but also to stimulate it, like reading a book, learning new crafts, learning a language, doing something that taxes the mind a bit as well.
Mhm.
The spiritual side of it was getting back in touch with that inner voice that we tend to disconnect from. And our ego shouts so loud that that's all we tend to hear in the main. So I had to shut that ego up and get back in touch with that inner voice, my inner wisdom, higher self, whatever name people want to call it. But it's there for us. But I didn't know that I didn't know about emotional healing until I trained as a coach. And that kind of blew my mind, because we have to go into our past. We have to heal our past. We have to forgive ourselves for whatever we need forgiveness for, and the people who hurt us, because I carried all that trauma within me. And the emotional part is so profound in healing, that child within us that's holding that trauma that we went through, whether it was something big like a capital T trauma, or something smaller like being teased or being pushed in front of. It's how we held that as a child, and we're still holding that trauma as that child inside of us. So if we can look at that through the eyes of compassion and loving kindness, and with the skills and knowledge we've got today, that helps us to see the situation maybe a little different, understand that the people who hurt us might also have been hurt, might not have had the skills and knowledge we'd hoped they would have had when we were that child. And in doing so, it helps us to forgive the people involved, to let go, and then leave our past in the past. And we can't change what's happened, but we can change how we view it. So when we look back, we can use compassion and that loving kindness. So that I learned that emotional part when I was doing my coach training. And with everything I'd done in my own healing and I'd learned through writing my book, that really pulled it together. And when I did that emotional work, it was like this weight was just lifted off my shoulders.
Yeah.
But I also had an understanding of why my childhood was like it was, because the people in it didn't have the skills and knowledge that they do today, and times were very different. So it's been quite a journey, and challenging at times, because I was in that medical model, and then I had to shift my whole core belief from I need a pill and a diagnosis and see a doctor to make me better, to I need to support myself better and more efficiently to heal myself.
Yeah, incredible. And I'll get on to your medical journey here just in a second. But one thing that really stood out for me there in terms of conditioning. You're conditioned from a very young age to act, be, think a certain way.
Yeah,
And for whatever reason, that's such an incredible life anchor that stays with you forever, to the inner child that you were talking about there. And that's internally, that's the deep part of ourselves. And then adding in your life experience, your training, your expectations, your desires, your wants, your needs, it gets to a point where some of it's completely innate and some of it is maybe, if I could say, somewhat superficial. And that's what I'm wondering here in terms of, one of the things that obviously is that you come from a family of medical professionals. You mentioned your mum was a nurse. You became a nurse. 41 years of being surrounded by your reference of the medical model of
yeah,
this is the way that we do things. That's conditioning in and of itself. So I can't even
yes,
imagine how how complex it must have been to stop, to pause, to go through the turmoil or the journey, let me say, maybe it's not all turmoil, of how do I literally undo all the beliefs that I have collected for 4+ decades.
yeah.
So, as your background as a nurse from a nursing family, how did that both challenge and shape your approach to holistic health and self-healing?
It challenged me massively, because first of all, when my nurse colleague questioned me, I was quite confused, because that's all I knew.
Yeah.
So it triggered me enough to want to find out more information. And that's how we find out what our core beliefs are, because we become triggered by something,
Mhm.
something that challenges our belief. And our beliefs in the main tend to run on our subconscious. So we're not even aware of them. And we're acting out our days from our subconscious, not even understanding what our core beliefs were.
Yeah.
So that was a huge challenge that I had. But because I was curious, why would she say that? I went and did some research, which started helping me to open my mind to other possibilities. But as I started to heal myself and I got further down the line in healing more and more conditions, I'm having this real conflict and dilemma in my mind, because I always wanted to be, as a child, I always wanted to be a nurse.
Mm.
And I saw myself as a nurse until I retired.
Yeah.
And I aligned my personality with Sarah, the nurse. So if we take the nurse away, who am I? So that
Wow.
was a massive authenticity challenge. Like, who am I really
Yeah.
when I peeled away the nurse? Because actually, we're not our job. We are the person and we have a job. So that was a whole new level of healing the who actually am I? What is it I like to do? And what is it I want to do to be? Who do I want to be? Who even was I, and am I still that person now, or has that person changed? Because we can become people pleasers over time, and we can change our behavior to help placate people around us, or to feel loved and valued. So that was a massive dive into who on earth am I at my core. But as I peeled the layers back and started really thinking, well, what clothes do I like to wear? Well, I'm a bit of a hippie, actually. And where do I like to live? Well, I'm a bit of a gypsy, actually. And what do I like to eat? Well, I just love food.
Yeah.
And so I started to build a picture up of who I was at my core.
Yeah.
But it took me a while, because at first, when I was challenged, I didn't even want to do the work to find out who I was underneath, if I'm not a nurse, because that's all I ever wanted to be.
Mm.
So to tackle that, it took me a while to build up the courage to even start unpeeling that onion, so to speak, to
Yeah.
find out who I was.
Yeah. I'm really interested in terms of the challenge. Like, was it a one-off conversation with this particular person? Was it a series of conversations that got you
Yeah.
to kind of figure out what it was? Like, what did she say?
It's just one conversation in a
Really?
corridor.
Really?
Yeah.
And what was the
She's
challenge? Was there was there a trigger word in there? Was there the way it was
No,
delivered?
I wasn't triggered. I was confused as to why she would ask me about using pharmaceuticals at home.
Right.
There was nothing illicit,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
she asked why I'm using pharmaceuticals. Like, well, because I'm a nurse and we work with pharmaceuticals,
That's
and
what you
they
do.
heal people in inverted commas, because
Yeah.
that's what I was told and that's what I believed.
Yeah.
So that set me going researching sort of every night after work on the internet. What is our body capable of, the history of pharmaceuticals, the side effects of pharmaceuticals. And the more I read, the more horrified I was. And I'm thinking, wow, I've been bought into this for 41 years. But it was a huge hole that I fell into.
Yeah. Yeah. And it sounds like it. So in terms of barriers, you now have information that you didn't have before that goes against all of your core beliefs, your being, your life to this point, your identity, as you mentioned earlier. There has to be some internal barriers. And I'm also interested in terms of your any external blockers or barriers that got in your way, because when you go on a journey of self-discovery, self-healing, it impacts your people, it impacts your network, it impacts your community. So I'm interested in what, if any, resistance did you experience as you started to grow differently?
My family called me crazy.
Oh, wow. Wow.
We moved back from the States to the UK. So I started trying to share the message with people at
Yeah.
work, because I was working now with a different set of people than I was out in America.
Yeah.
And although I went back to the same hospital, I went to different areas. So I was working with different people, not the people that I knew previously to go
Yeah.
to before we went to America. They thought I was crazy as well. But it was like, but this is the truth. And now I'm at a point where I've done so much healing. I actually don't care if you think I'm crazy,
Yeah.
because this is what I've learned through my own journey. So I just kept sharing my message, and hoped people were, what's the word, would respond favorably,
Yeah.
would receive it favorably. I could maybe plant some seeds and maybe they could grow them over time. But I wanted to keep sharing the message, even though I was in the hospital. I didn't really talk to the doctors about it. It was more the nurses that I was working with at the time. But it wasn't even pharmaceuticals, because once I'd gone into this massive hole of what is going on, I then realized, like, the toxins in makeup, the toxins in our laundry products, cleaning products, beauty products, in our air, in our food. So it wasn't just into natural healing and without pharmaceuticals. It was like the whole everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was huge.
And it's such a great example of conviction in your beliefs. When you said I didn't care if they said I was crazy, and you get that when you have a genuine, heartfelt, deep down understanding, this is true for me, and you're not going to dissuade me in any way, shape, or form for this. It almost provides that shield, that force field to say, I'm just going to tell you, you don't have to do anything about it, but I know I'm right.
Yeah,
And then kind of moving on from there. So then in terms of this is obviously a huge catalyst of your journey in terms of the feedback you're getting, in terms of the resistance you're getting, in terms of the ridicule that's coming your way, what's being said to you and maybe what's being said about you when you're not in the room as well, who knows?
yeah,
You then attach that to an identity, to your previous identity and then a new forming identity.
yeah.
What impact did that have as you began to step away from what that identity was for basically your entire life? And how did that help you transform your outlook into your holistic health healing journey?
That I spiraled into that deep, dark depression,
Right.
and had suicidal thoughts, and burned out my adrenal glands with the stress, and my thyroid stopped working. And for quite a while, I couldn't think logically and rationally. And I knew I could heal it because I'd healed everything else previously,
Yeah.
but I couldn't think how I was going to do it. And because I was having these suicidal thoughts, the doctor wanted to see me once a month to make sure I was still alive, to
Mhm.
keep asking me if I wanted to take some tablets. I'm like, nope, don't want to take those tablets. But I don't, and I said, I don't know what I'm going to do. I really don't. I know I'm going to heal it. I have that core belief that I can heal. I
Yeah.
have healed. I can get through this, but I don't know what I'm going to do. And I'd taken to drinking alcohol as well. And he was checking up on me, and and I'm like, no, I don't drink that much, just like an aperitif, and then a glass of wine or two with a meal in the evening, and then a liqueur after. And that's literally at evening meal time. I'm like, I'm not a drinker.
Yeah.
So he asked me about the quantities, and he said, Sarah, you're drinking 70 units a week.
Oh,
I'm like, okay, maybe I actually have got another problem that I didn't even realize that I'd got.
yeah.
So that shocked me. So I started to cut back a bit on that. My friend came and picked me up every Wednesday night and took me to the gym. I didn't want to be with people, but I knew it was good for my health, even though it was challenging to be out with all those people. And I had dogs. We had dogs. So I had to walk them whilst my husband was at work and my daughter was at school. So I was out twice a day walking the dogs. I was at the gym for 2 hours every Wednesday. Wednesday was the day I drank water because I was at the gym. And I know when my thyroid stopped working, because when I started at the gym, I would sweat buckets. And then it wasn't long after going, I just stopped sweating totally.
Yeah.
And my thyroid gave up. Um, so over time, I think the combination of reducing the alcohol, walking the dogs, and going to the gym really started to help lift the depression.
Yeah.
Um, and I didn't feel like I had control over myself. And I think that's what kept me in that depression for a while, because I'm trying to herd cats, if you like, or hold jelly, and it's like it wasn't happening.
Mhm.
So because I was out and walking and exercising, I do believe that really helped to lift the depression. And as it started to lift, I realized I was looking outside of me at the trees were coming into leaf. It was spring, there was flowers starting to bloom. And I remember thinking, wow, there's an outside world, because I'd been so dark for so long, and my clothes were dark as well. I only wore black or dark grey, but I didn't realize until I looked back.
Yeah.
But as I started to feel a bit better, and I started doing some small meditations, just guided meditations, because I couldn't shut that voice up in my mind if I was tried to do it silently. And as time went on and I started looking at where I was, I realized that I'd actually was practicing mindfulness while I was out walking with the dogs, because I was looking at where I was, not thinking about anything, just being in that walk outside. And I was also practicing gratitude, looking for that tiny bit of blue sky, because it was in the UK, it's grey, but look, there's a penny's worth of blue
Yeah.
up there. And so it's like just looking for things to actually show gratitude for. But I didn't know that's what I was doing at the time. It was almost like intuitively I
Yeah.
was doing it. As I look back, I saw that's what I was doing. And I think that really helped me on my road to recovery. And I realized I had to step out of this non-existent comfort zone to be able to grow it on my healing journey. And my husband said, "Why don't you set up your own business?" I'm like, well, what does that even entail? Never even considered having a business, but I wasn't happy at work with the drugs in the hospital and the staff. So I went to classes and learned how to be an entrepreneur, and literally stepped out of the hospital job, my dream job, and into entrepreneurship. But I was still a nurse. I was a nurse entrepreneur. I needed my registration to do the work I was doing.
Right.
3 or 4 different businesses found me, asked me to contract to them business to business. So work came to me without me looking for it. And I won awards as an entrepreneur, but I was still a nurse. Even though I wasn't in the hospitals and giving out those drugs, I was challenged by the fact that every year I had to sign that register to say, yes, I'm upholding the standards. So that was a real barrier to me, that I'm doing in my private life. I'm doing the healing, the natural living, but in my work life, I am still aligning with the nurse. But I think looking back, it was like a sidestep to get out of the hospital and the drugs into entrepreneurship. And that was quite a turning point, because with the winning awards, it validated that actually I can do this. I am a successful entrepreneur with skills. So I closed that business down. We moved to Spain. I actually resigned from the register because I no longer wanted to be a nurse,
Yeah.
after doing my training as a coach, and set up my coaching business. But that I had to surrender my license, because it just didn't, I wasn't aligned with it. It didn't sit well with me just signing that register. Plus, I had to pay £140 a year just to be on the register, and I got nothing for it. But so it was nice not to pay that out. But it was the lack of alignment. I had to say, yes, I'm upholding these standards. And actually, I really wasn't, because I was helping people to help themselves.
Yeah. 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 Lots and lots of steps to the journey. And it's so interesting that it wasn't a direct line going up the way, success to
No,
success to success to success. Yes, you had business coming to you. You had already went through a very serious emotional episode in your life, chapter in your life that got you to get there. In terms of the influence that you had, and you're looking at the internet, you're gathering data, you're absorbing, you're kind of manifesting that data to what it means for you. Were there any any kind of shining lights, any industry leaders that you were looking at to say, I subscribe to this school of thought, or this person resonates with me, even if it's not within your field, just something that's helping you cope with who you are today, where you want to go tomorrow?
I looked up to the likes of Louise Hay, Joe Dispenza, Greg Braden, and just, they're all about natural self healing. And I've got bookshelves full of books. And until I was a coach, I only read what I had to read to pass the exams in my nursing and in university. But these books really, really hit my soul, and I've bought such a lot of books, and books been written by doctors about the fluke healing, shall we say, where they've had patients who've suddenly spontaneously healed and they don't understand, so they've written books about those.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to, I was just a sponge. It's like, I need, I've 41 years without this information, and now suddenly I've been smacked in the face with it.
Yeah.
So I was just taking in as much information as I could, and I found lots of alternative doctors, functional medicine doctors, integrative medicine doctors, and just followed lots and lots of doctors, read lots of books, talked to lots of people, researched online, did a lot of reading,
Yeah.
and just absorbed all this information, which is like backing up what I'm seeing in my own health,
Yeah.
and my own healing.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's good to be able to look to other people, to absorb that information, digest it,
Yeah,
analyze it, agree or disagree, have a conversation about it, and then kind of move on, because all of that has that influential nature to be able to say, yes, while I don't go all in on everything they say, but I take what's meaningful for me to be able to craft my own message and my own path. So in terms of that, you mentioned your four pillars earlier in our conversation. Are those the cornerstone in terms of your ability to encourage clients or potential clients, to address root causes rather than suppressing symptoms as the pharmaceutical industry does, as you said? Is
yeah,
that the cornerstone of your communication and your healing journey for
it
your
is.
clients?
It is. We have to dig into what the body's trying to say through the symptoms.
Yeah.
I try and get people to let go of diagnoses. Some people like diagnoses, it works for them,
Mhm.
but the diagnosis clouds the language of the symptoms. The symptoms are our body telling us
Right.
what's wrong, what's going on. The diagnosis is what the doctor's telling us. So
Right.
if we can dig in, why is my body expressing pain or a rash or irritable bowel or migraines, or what is behind the symptoms? What is the message? And then address the four pillars: the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, and find where the deficit is in one of those pillars, but work on all four together, because we need to cover all four together to be holistic, because our body is all interconnected. We can't separate out our heart from our lungs, from our brain, like the Western medicine does, with the cardiologist, the pulmonologist, the neurologist. It's all interconnected. So we have to treat ourselves as a whole and look at holistic healing as a whole. We can't just heal on a physical plane or on a mental plane. We have to see where the deficits are and bolster those in each of those four pillars.
Yeah, for sure. What in terms of patterns, what type and style of clients do you typically see coming to you? I'm thinking more in terms of where are they at in their journey? Are they at the end where they're saying, I've tried everything, nothing's worked, this is my last opportunity? Or is it more at the beginning where they're saying, before I make any discernible decisions here, I'd like to know a bit more about that? Or is it somewhere in between?
I have, in the main, people coming to me at the end. I've done this, I'm fed up. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. Don't
Yes.
want to take pills anymore. So I've got most of my clients are there. But I do have some clients in that I don't want to get sick. So help me to not get sick. What do I need to do in my life to stay healthy? So they're being proactive. So we can still use the four pillars of health and healing, to work on, to remain proactive, to prevent illness and disease.
Yeah. Yeah, I often say to my son, actually, it's not even from a medical perspective per se, but I'll say there are certain lessons that you need to learn that are part of life, and you just need to go through it to discern what it means for you, and then make a choice and a path for where you're going to go forward. And there are certain other things that you don't need to learn because someone else has learned it. And you're not
Yeah.
going to be any better off having experienced it yourself. So when I'm trying to tell him something like, don't do that, stop that, why don't you try this? And he's like, oh, shut up, Dad. I'm thinking, this is one of these things. Please trust me. I'm not trying to curtail your growth in any way or have any controlling influence on you. This is just in the bucket of, I
Yeah.
already did this. You don't have to,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
But you know what? They absolutely have to. My
Ah,
kids are grown up now. I've got grandchildren. And it's like, I tried exactly the same. Look, I've done that. It doesn't work.
yeah,
I've got the scars from it.
yeah,
Please don't do that. But they've got to do it and they've got to learn for themselves. So all we
yeah.
can do is be there to keep picking up the pieces.
Yeah, the one good thing about him, he is very open upon reflection. So afterwards, when something doesn't work out the way that he was anticipating, it's not a "I told you so" type of conversation, but it's more he's like, yeah, I get what you mean now. I understand. At the time, I thought you were doing this, but I appreciate you were doing that. Okay, we don't need to have this conversation again, and then moving
Yeah.
forward. So it's
Yeah.
great to hear that there are a certain level of the population that are proactive in saying, tell me some stuff, and I
Yeah.
will make a decision about whether this is going to be right for me. So in terms of, you publish your book, you're embracing coaching in a big way. What lessons would you say that you've learned about sharing your story, sharing your knowledge, sharing your pillars of support with the broader audience? What are the main lessons that you've managed to learn for yourself?
That we're not alone. Because
Yeah,
when I was in that deep, dark depression, when the doctor wanted to keep throwing pills at me for different complaints, especially chronic pain, you just feel so alone and isolated.
yeah,
And through my own healing, through the clients I work with, it's helping people to understand you're not alone. There are other people going through it. And although our journeys are unique and we might have nuances within them, they're all very similar. And there's so much that we can do to help ourselves, but we have to come into ourselves and actually believe that we can help ourselves and believe that we can heal. And for some people, their belief means they need to see a doctor.
yep,
To some people, healing has to come from a doctor. So for those people, I bless them and give them compassion, and they will need to go and see a doctor. But not everybody does. And some people will take that responsibility back and look at what they can do in their own lives to help themselves on their own healing journeys, as I have done, and the people in my book. There's so much that we can do. And when you look at it as a big picture, it's really overwhelming because there's so much that we could look at changing.
yes,
So just pick one tiny thing. If you're going to hydrate more, or you're going to take 5 minutes out every day to meditate, or just whatever it is that you choose, just pick one thing and do that for 30 days. Make that a habit, and then find another thing.
yeah,
Don't try and tackle all essences of all four pillars in one go, because it's too overwhelming and it will just stop you in your tracks.
yeah.
So be gentle on yourself, but know that your body can heal itself and does heal itself every day. We just don't see it.
Yeah, it's such a great point, and I know you touched on it a little bit earlier, or certainly I was thinking about it a little bit earlier, in terms of the compounding benefits that you were getting from being forced to walk the dogs because your husband's not there to do it for you, being forced by your pal on a Wednesday to go to the gym, and then kind of forcing yourself to drink water on that given day because that's part of your healing journey. And it's so important to then be able to manage the expectations of both yourself and others, to say there is no quick fix. You know, you
Very
have
sensible.
you have to commit to these habits or micro habits. You have to continue to make sure that they are working for you. You then compound on these habits with other habits and other habits and other habits. And then eventually, over a period of time, you will start to see and feel and be kind of buoyed or enthused or motivated by the fact that you've taken a lot of control of this. You did this, yourself, rather than, for example, I have a banging headache. I'm going to take a couple of painkillers and then it goes away. Cool, job done. Oh, wait a minute, the headache came back again. What's going down here? I don't know.
Yeah.
And I'm not an advocate for non-pharmaceuticals or holistic healing. I'm a completely neutral when it comes to that, which is why I'm so fascinated by the conversation, because I see the absolute benefit in it. If you can get the right type and style of people with the right type and style of mindset, and
Yeah.
just try it. Just
And
prove it does or doesn't work for you.
yeah, and the most challenging part is nobody can do it for you. You
Yeah,
have to do it. So you have to dig deep
yeah,
and find that courage to step out of that tiny little comfort zone that you've made for yourself. And the more you do that, the more you build courage and confidence to keep stepping out. But it all starts and ends with us. Nobody can do it for us.
yeah,
And that's really challenging, because when you're in that dark depression, when you're feeling exhausted, when you're racked with pain, when you're feeling sluggish and you've got brain fog, you don't want to do anything.
exactly.
So thinking about doing something, it's like, oh, I can't be bothered today. I'm just going to have another sofa day. I'm going to have another bed day. I'm going to have whatever. But
Yeah,
we have to really push ourselves and own that illness, that disease, and say, this is not the way my life is going to pan out. I am going to step out of this. I have created this, because we co create our lives.
yeah,
Our thoughts become our reality.
yeah.
So we co create. So in understanding that we've created something helps us to see that we can uncreate it, we can
Yes.
challenge it, we can change it, but we have to be the ones to do it. And it takes courage and confidence. And we've all got it. We just have to dig deep for it some days.
Yeah. The power and opportunity and genuine rethinking of what your life has manifested itself to that particular point in time.
Yeah,
So powerful. This has been an incredible conversation and it's so eye-opening. I kind of think this is us just scratching the surface, and we need to do this again a little bit deeper at some point down the road if you were open to that. But before
absolutely.
I would love it. Before I let you go for today, where can people find you?
If everyone goes straight to my website, everything is on there. So www.sarahdawkins.com. That's SARAHDAWKINS.
Perfect. Sarah, it's been an absolute delight, an absolute pleasure to see you again. Thank you very much for the conversation today, and take care.
Thank you, Gary.
Hello again. Thanks again for tuning in to this episode, and I do hope that you found it valuable and gained some insights. I do have an ask for you. If you enjoyed this podcast, I would absolutely love it if you would connect with me on my socials, and that's at LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. Just search for my name and do whatever it is you need to do there to follow me and stay updated with all the latest content, tips, and discussions. And for any more resources that you're looking for, feel free to visit my website, garygillen.com. And while you're there, you can book a free, no obligation 30-minute coaching call directly with me through the site. Whether you're looking to enhance your performance or tackle a new challenge, I'm absolutely here to help you succeed, and I would absolutely love to hear from you. Thanks very much again, and until next time, keep pushing towards your goals and getting better each and every day, my friend.